The coffee had gone cold in my hands by the time Sarah finally spoke. We'd been sitting at the kitchen table for what felt like hours, though the clock insisted it had only been 15 minutes. The silence between us had grown so thick I could almost see it hanging in the air like morning fog. "I need some time," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "A week, maybe less, just to think." I looked up from the mug I'd been staring into, studying her face for clues I already knew I'd find. The way she wouldn't meet my eyes. The nervous fidgeting with her wedding ring, sliding it up and down her finger but never quite taking it off. The subtle shift in her posture, angling away from me as if preparing to flee. "To think about what?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to know the answer. "Us. Everything. I just feel so lost lately, Marcus. Like I'm drowning and I don't know why." She finally looked at me and I saw tears gathering in the corners of her eyes. Real tears or practiced ones. After 12 years of marriage, I thought I'd know the difference. Now I wasn't so sure. I wanted to reach across the table, take her hand, tell her we could work through whatever this was together. That's what the old Marcus would have done. The Marcus from 5 years ago, before the promotions and the late nights at the office, before we'd stopped talking about our dreams and started just coordinating schedules. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the way she'd phrased it. Not, "we need time," but "I need time." Or maybe it was the new perfume I'd noticed last month. The one she claimed was from her sister, but came in a box I'd never seen. The suddenly password-protected phone. The girls' nights that stretched later and later. "Okay," I heard myself say. "Where will you go?" Relief flooded her face so quickly she couldn't hide it. "My mom's, probably. Or maybe I'll get a hotel somewhere quiet. Beach, maybe. I just need to clear my head." "The beach sounds nice," I said neutrally. "When were you thinking?" Is tomorrow too soon?" The way she asked it, hopeful and guilty at once, told me everything. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. She'd been planning this, preparing for this conversation, maybe even counting down the days. "Tomorrow's fine. I'll be here when you get back." She smiled then, small and sad, and reached across to squeeze my hand. "Thank you for understanding. I love you, Marcus. I just need to figure out me." That night I lay awake listening to her pack in the next room. She'd moved to the guest bedroom 3 months ago, claiming my snoring kept her awake. I'd offered to see a doctor, get one of those sleep apnea tests, but she'd said not to bother, that she was sleeping better with her own space anyway. The next morning, I made her favorite breakfast, blueberry pancakes with real maple syrup, bacon crispy just the way she liked it. She barely touched it, too anxious to eat, checking her phone every few minutes. "Text me when you get there?" I asked as she loaded her suitcase into her car. One suitcase, I noted. Packed full but not overfilled. She'd done this before. Or she'd at least thought about it enough to know exactly what to bring. "Of course," she promised, kissing my cheek with lips that felt like ice despite the warm morning sun. I watched her drive away, her silver Honda disappearing around the corner of Oak Street, past the coffee shop where I'd proposed 13 years ago. She'd said yes without hesitation then, thrown her arms around my neck and kissed me like I was her entire world. When had I stopped being her world? Or more accurately, when had someone else become it? I walked back inside our home, my home now I supposed, and picked up my phone. The tracking app I'd installed on Sarah's phone last week, hidden in a system update she'd barely glanced at, showed a blue dot moving steadily south, not toward her mother's house, toward the coast. The blue dot on my screen had been stationary for 6 hours now, pulsing like a heartbeat at the Seascape Resort 200 miles down the coast. I sat in my study, the room dark except for the glow of my computer monitor, watching, waiting. I'd told myself I wouldn't do this, that I trusted her, that tracking her phone was a violation of everything a marriage should be, but marriages should also be a lot of things that ours apparently wasn't anymore. I zoomed in on the map, studying the resort's layout on their website. 5-star accommodations, ocean view suites, couples spa packages. Their tagline mocked me from the screen. "Where romance meets paradise." My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Made it safe. Need to decompress. I'll call you tomorrow. Love you." The blue dot hadn't moved. She'd been there since 2 in the afternoon. It was now past 8. I opened a new browser tab and did something I'd sworn I'd never do. I logged into our cell phone account and pulled her call records. My hands shook as I scrolled through the numbers. There were dozens of calls to one number I didn't recognize starting about 4 months ago. Short calls at first, just a few minutes, then longer. The most recent one, made from a rest stop halfway to the coast, had lasted 47 minutes. I ran the number through a reverse lookup. Andrew Chen, age 34. Worked at the same marketing firm where Sarah had started doing freelance work last spring. The job she'd said would give her purpose again and make her feel like herself. The coffee maker beeped from the kitchen, its scheduled timer pulling me back to reality. 3 years ago, I'd programmed it to brew every evening at 8:30. Timed perfectly for when Sarah and I used to curl up on the couch together for our nightly ritual. Coffee, conversation, and whatever show we were binge-watching. We'd called it our decompression time. When had we stopped doing that? I already knew the answer. I just hadn't wanted to see it. I made a decision that would change everything. I called the Seascape Resort. "Good evening, Seascape Resort. This is Jennifer. How may I help you?" "Hi, yes, my wife is staying with you, Sarah Foster. I wanted to surprise her with some champagne sent to her room, but I've lost the room number." "Could you help me?" "Of course. Let me just pull that up. Foster. Ah yes, room 247, Ocean View Suite. But sir, I should mention there's already a do not disturb order on that room for the evening." My heart stopped. "I see. Actually, you know what? I'll surprise her tomorrow instead. Thank you." I hung up before she could respond. Ocean View Suite. Do not disturb. And I was certain, absolutely certain, that room wasn't registered under Sarah Foster alone. I should have felt rage, betrayal, the burning desire to drive down there and kick down that door, confront them both. That's what men in movies did, what they were supposed to do. Instead, I felt nothing, a vast, empty nothing that was somehow worse than any emotion. I stood up and walked through our house, the house we'd bought 7 years ago, where we'd planned to raise children that never came. The living room where we'd hosted countless dinner parties. The kitchen where she'd taught me to make her grandmother's lasagna. The bedroom where we'd made love and made promises and made a life together, or thought we had. In my study, I pulled out the filing cabinet and retrieved our marriage documents. Birth certificates, social security cards, bank statements, insurance policies. I'd always been the organized one, the planner. Sarah used to joke that I'd have our funeral plots picked out before we turned 40. She had no idea how thorough I could actually be. Over the next 4 hours, I made 12 phone calls and sent 37 emails. To our lawyer, an old college friend who owed me more than one favor. To our financial advisor, to my boss requesting an immediate 2-week leave. I photographed every document, backed up every file, downloaded every bank record. At 2 a.m, I stood in the doorway of Sarah's closet, looking at the empty hangers where she'd pulled clothes for her trip. On her dresser sat our wedding photo, the two of us on the beach in Maui, young and stupid and so in love we could barely stand to be apart for even a moment. I picked up the photo and studied her face, trying to pinpoint exactly when the woman in this picture had become a stranger. Had it been gradual? Or was there a specific moment, a single decision that had cracked the foundation of everything we'd built? Did it even matter anymore? I took the photo with me. By the time the sun rose, the house was nearly empty. Our joint accounts, zeroed out, transferred to a new account in my name only. Her car still in my name with the keys sitting on the kitchen counter. The furniture, mine, purchased before the marriage. The appliances, the dishes, the books, all cataloged, all divided according to laws I'd spent the night learning. Everything that was truly ours together fit into a single box. 12 years, one cardboard box. The blue dot on my phone hadn't moved all night. The lawyer's office smelled like leather and old books, a scent that should have been comforting but instead made my stomach churn. David Chen, no relation to Andrew I'd checked, sat across from me, reading through the documents I'd compiled over the last 48 hours with an expression that shifted between professional sympathy and genuine surprise. "Marcus, I have to say this is the most thoroughly documented case I've seen in 15 years of practice." He looked up at me over his reading glasses. "Are you absolutely certain this is what you want? Once we filed, there's no going back quietly." I watched the blue dot for 2 days, David. 2 days in that hotel room. She texted me every evening, getting so much clarity, really finding herself. "Missing you, but this is important." I laughed, but it came out bitter and sharp. "She checked out yesterday morning." Know where she went? David waited. Shopping. 2 hours at a boutique in town. Then lunch at Marcel's, that French place where reservations book up months in advance. The place I tried to take her for our anniversary last year, but she said it was too pretentious. I pulled out my phone and showed him the credit card alerts I'd been monitoring. She charged $300 on our joint card. Dinner for two. She's not even trying to hide it. Why would she? She thinks I'm the same Marcus who'd wait patiently at home, trust her completely, believe every word she says. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. That Marcus died somewhere between I Need Space and room 247. David was quiet for a long moment. Okay, I'll file the papers today. But Marcus, the house, the accounts, the car, you've legally protected yourself, but emotionally this is going to hit her like a freight train. Are you prepared for that? She's supposed to come home tonight, I said, not answering his question. She texted this morning, can't wait to see you, we have so much to talk about. I turned back to face him. I won't be there. Where will you go? I pulled an envelope from my jacket pocket. My brother's place in Portland. He's overseas for work, said I could house sit for the month. After that, I shrugged. I don't know. Maybe I'll figure it out. Isn't that what she's doing? Finding herself? David slid the divorce papers across his desk. Sign here, here, and here. My hand didn't shake. I thought it would, that some part of me would hesitate, would second-guess this scorched earth approach. But as I signed my name on each line, all I felt was a strange sense of relief, like I'd been holding my breath underwater for months and was finally breaking the surface. I'll have these served tomorrow afternoon. Where do you want me to send them? The house. Tape them to the front door. I reached into my bag and pulled out the wedding photo from Maui. Attach this too. David's eyes widened. That's cruel, Marcus, is it? Or is it honest? Let her see what she's destroying. Let her look at the people we were and explain to herself how we got here. I left David's office and spent the rest of the day in motion, checking items off a list I'd made in the dark hours of the previous night. I went to the bank and closed out the safe deposit box, taking the few valuable items. My grandmother's ring, some old coins, bonds my parents had given us. I stopped by my office and cleaned out my desk, accepting my boss's concerned questions with vague answers about family emergency and needing time. At 2 p.m, I met with a moving company. I need everything out by tonight. Everything except what's in the master bedroom. Leave that untouched. Sir, that's going to cost, I don't care what it costs. I have a storage unit rented. The address is on this card. I want the house empty. By 6 p.m, I stood in what had been our living room, now an echoing shell. The movers had taken the last load 30 minutes ago. The only sounds were my footsteps on hardwood floors and the ticking of the wall clock, Sarah's grandmother's clock, one of the few things I'd left behind. I walked through each room one final time. The kitchen where we'd had our last breakfast together, where she'd barely touched her pancakes. The guest bedroom where she'd exiled herself months ago. The bathroom where her products still lined the counter. Expensive serums and creams that promised to turn back time. If only. In the master bedroom, I'd left everything exactly as it was. Her side of the bed, still made with the decorative pillow she loved and I'd always found excessive. Her nightstand with the book she'd been pretending to read. The framed photos on her dresser. Her parents, her sister's kids, us at various stages of our relationship. I took one last item from my pocket, a letter I'd written but would never send. I placed it in the drawer of her nightstand, knowing she'd find it eventually, knowing it would hurt. Dear Sarah, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Not just from this house, but from your life entirely. You wanted time to find yourself. I'm giving you all the time in the world. I know about Andrew. I know about the resort, the dinners, the lies. I could confront you, demand explanations, beg you to choose me. But here's what I've realized. I don't want someone who has to choose. I want someone who never doubted. You'll find the divorce papers on the door. Everything has been divided according to law. The house is yours, empty like how I feel. The accounts are separated. Your car's in the driveway. I don't hate you, Sarah. I don't even know if I still love you. I just know I can't be the man who waits at home while you figure out if I'm enough. I hope you find what you're looking for. I hope Andrew makes you happier than I apparently could. I hope when you look at our wedding photo, you remember that once upon a time, I was your whole world and you were mine. Goodbye. Marcus I locked the door behind me for the last time, leaving my key on the kitchen counter. My car was packed with everything I'd need for the next month. Clothes, laptop, a box of documents, and one small photo album Sarah didn't know I'd kept, filled with pictures from before we were married. When everything was still simple, my phone buzzed. "Sarah, just left the coast, should be home by 10. Can you make sure the porch light is on?" I turned off my phone and threw it out the window somewhere on the highway between our old life and whatever came next. Sarah's hands shook as she held her phone, Andrew's number highlighted on the screen. She'd been sitting in her car in the driveway for 20 minutes, unable to process what she was seeing. The house was dark, completely dark. No porch light, no lights inside, no sign of Marcus's car, and on the front door, illuminated by her headlights, the envelope. She'd known something was wrong the moment she turned onto their street. The house had looked empty, abandoned, like those foreclosed homes she'd pass and feel vaguely sad about before continuing with her day. But this wasn't someone else's tragedy. This was hers. With legs that felt like water, she'd walked up the path to the front door, each step slower than the last. The envelope was taped at eye level, and paper-clipped to it was a photograph she recognized immediately. Their wedding photo, the one from Marcus's study. Her hands had trembled so badly it took 3 tries to tear open the envelope. Petition for dissolution of marriage. The words swam before her eyes. She'd read the first page, then the second, then stopped because she couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't understand how her life had shattered in the span of a single week. Now, sitting in her car, she tried Andrew's number again. It went straight to voicemail. She'd called him 8 times in the last hour. 8 times and nothing. "Andrew, please call me back. Something's happened. Marcus, he's gone. The house is empty. There are divorce papers. I don't understand. Please, I need you to call me." She hung up and stared at the dark house. With shaking hands, she used her key and pushed open the front door. The sound of her footsteps echoed in the emptiness. The living room, empty. The couch where they'd watched 1,000 movies, gone. The coffee table where they'd played board games on rainy Sundays, gone. The bookshelf that had taken them 3 hours to assemble because Marcus had insisted on following the instructions while she'd wanted to wing it, gone. "Marcus?" Her voice cracked. "Marcus, are you here?" Silence answered her. She walked from room to room, her horror growing with each empty space. The kitchen, their dishes gone. Their appliances gone. Even the small things, the meaningless things like the magnetic poetry on the refrigerator. The corkboard with their grocery lists, all gone. The guest bedroom where she'd been sleeping. The bed was still there, but stripped bare. Her stomach turned. He'd left it as a message, hadn't he? "This is where you chose to sleep instead of with your husband." Finally, she climbed the stairs to their bedroom, hope and dread warring in her chest. Maybe he was up there. Maybe this was some kind of elaborate message, a way to shock her into realizing what she'd been throwing away. She pushed open the door. The bedroom was exactly as she'd left it. Her side of the bed made up, her things on the dresser, her book on the nightstand. But Marcus's side, the drawers hung open, empty. His closet door stood ajar, showing nothing but bare hangers. Sarah sank onto the bed, the divorce papers crumpling in her fist. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. She'd left for a week, 1 week, and her entire life had disappeared. Her phone buzzed. "Finally, Andrew. Can't talk now. Family emergency. Need space to deal with this. We'll call you next week." She stared at the message, reading it over and over, looking for some hidden meaning, some reassurance. But there was nothing there except the same words Marcus had given her a week ago. Need space. The irony would have been funny if she could remember how to laugh. She opened her nightstand drawer, looking for something, anything that might explain this. That's when she found the letter. She read it 3 times. The first time the words didn't sink in. The second time she heard them in Marcus's voice, calm, measured, final. The third time she felt them like knives. "I know about Andrew." Her phone slipped from her hands. He knew, he'd known before she left. Maybe the whole time. And he'd let her go anyway. Let her walk into Andrew's arms. Let her believe she was being so clever, so careful. She'd thought she was choosing her own happiness, finding herself, being brave enough to reach for something real. But Marcus had already known, had already decided, had already let her go. and in letting her go, he'd made sure there was nothing to come back to. Sarah stood and walked through the house again, this time seeing it differently. This wasn't anger. This wasn't revenge. This was finality. Marcus had surgically removed himself from her life with the same methodical precision he'd brought to everything else. She remembered the morning she'd left, how he'd made her favorite breakfast, how he'd kissed her goodbye, how he'd said, "I'll be here when you get back." He'd lied. But then again, so had she. For months, her phone rang. Her mother, Sarah. "Thank God. I've been calling you all day. Marcus called this morning, said there was a family emergency and I should check on you. What's going on? Are you okay?" Sarah looked around the empty house. "I don't know, Mom. I really don't know. Do you need me to come over? Your father and I can be there in an hour." No, I need to think." She hung up before her mother could protest. Everyone wanted to help, but nobody could. This was a mess entirely of her own making. She tried Andrew again. Voicemail. She texted him. He knows. Marcus knows everything. He's gone. The house is empty. Please call me. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally a message. "I think we should take a break. This is too much too fast. I'm sorry." Sarah read the message once, then dropped her phone like it had burned her. A break. Andrew wanted a break. The man she'd thrown away her marriage for. The man who'd made her feel alive again. The man who'd promised her that what they had was worth the risk. He wanted a break. She'd lost everything. In 1 week, she'd lost everything. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, was that somewhere deep down, in a place she'd been ignoring for months, she'd known this would happen. She'd known that what she had with Andrew was built on the fantasy of stolen moments and hotel rooms. She'd known that Marcus's quiet devotion was real in a way that Andrew's passionate declarations never could be. But she'd chosen the fantasy anyway, and now both were gone. 6 months later, Marcus sat on his brother's deck watching the Portland sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. His laptop was open beside him, a half-finished cup of coffee growing cold, but he wasn't working. He was just existing, being. Something he'd forgotten how to do in the final years of his marriage. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, saw the name, and considered letting it go to voicemail for the 47th time. But something made him answer. "Hello, Sarah." The silence on the other end lasted so long he thought maybe she'd pocket-dialed him. Then, "You answered." "I did. I've been calling for 6 months." "I know." More silence. He could hear her breathing, could picture her exactly, sitting in what had been their bedroom, probably wearing that old college sweatshirt she used to sleep in, her hair piled on top of her head. "The house sold," she finally said. "I signed the papers yesterday. The money's been transferred according to the divorce agreement." "Okay, that's it? Just okay?" Marcus took a sip of his cold coffee, grimaced, and set it down. "What do you want me to say, Sarah?" "I don't know. Something. Anything. You disappeared like you never existed. Like we never existed. Isn't that what you wanted? Space to find yourself?" He heard her breath catch. "That's not fair, isn't it?" He stood up and walked to the railing, looking out over the city lights beginning to twinkle below. "You asked for a week. You got forever. I'd say I over-delivered. You knew." Her voice cracked. "Before I even left, you knew about Andrew. You let me walk right into it. Why?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, organizing his thoughts the way he always did. "Because I needed to know if you'd choose me without being forced to. And you didn't. You chose him, chose the excitement, chose the fantasy of being someone else. And that was your right, Sarah. I'm not angry about that part." "Then what are you angry about?" "I'm not angry at all anymore. That's what these 6 months have been. Learning how not to be angry. Learning how not to be anything when it comes to you." He heard her crying softly. Part of him, the old Marcus part, wanted to comfort her, to say something kind. "But that Marcus was gone, Andrew left me," she whispered. 3 weeks after you did. Said it was all too complicated. That he thought he wanted something real, but realized he just wanted the fantasy too. We were both playing pretend." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" "Are you really?" "Yeah, actually I am." "I don't wish you pain, Sarah. I just can't be the one who saves you from it anymore. I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. I threw away everything for nothing. I lost you, I lost our life, I lost myself. And now I have nothing. Marcus closed his eyes. This was the moment. The moment where the old him would have crumbled, would have offered reconciliation, would have suggested counseling or a fresh start. You have yourself, he said quietly. The self you were looking for. Maybe not the one you hoped you'd find, but the one you actually are. That's what you wanted, right? To find out who you were without me? I was wrong. I was so wrong, Marcus. Can we? No. The word hung between them, final as a door closing. There's no going back, Sarah, not for me. These 6 months, I've rebuilt everything. My career. I took a new job, by the way, better position, better pay, better life. My health. I've lost 20 pounds, started running again like I used to in college. My peace, I sleep through the night now. I didn't even realize I'd stopped doing that until I started again. I'm happy for you, she said, and she almost sounded like she meant it. I guess you found yourself too. I guess I did. And you want to know what I found? I found out that I'm someone who deserves to be chosen first. Not after adventure, not after self-discovery, not after someone else first, and you couldn't do that. I choose you now. I'm choosing you right now. But that's not how it works, Sarah. You don't get to choose me after every other option has been exhausted. You don't get to choose me because Andrew didn't work out and the house is empty, and you're scared of being alone. You get to choose me because even when everything else looks exciting and new, I'm still what you want most. He heard her sobbing now, really crying, and it hurt him. Even after everything, it hurt him. But not enough to change his mind. I have to go, he said gently. Take care of yourself, Sarah, really, I mean that. Marcus. Wait. He hung up. For a long moment he stood there, phone in hand, waiting to feel something. Regret, doubt, longing. But there was only the sound of the wind in the trees and the distant hum of the city below. His phone buzzed again. A text this time from his brother. Hey, how's my favorite house sitter? You still planning to stay in Portland? Because I met someone here in Tokyo. Might extend my contract another year. House is yours if you want it. Marcus looked around at the deck, the view, the city that had become home without him even noticing. He thought about his new job, the team that actually appreciated him, the running group he'd joined, the cooking class where he'd learned to make more than just breakfast food, the life he'd built from nothing. He texted back, yeah, I think I'll stay. This feels like home now. Another buzz, a dating app notification. He'd downloaded it last month but hadn't really looked at it seriously. Now he opened it. Rachel, 34, loved hiking and bad puns. Her profile made him smile. His finger hovered over the like button. He thought about Sarah, about their wedding photo, about 12 years of history. Then he thought about the empty house, the blue dot on his phone, the lies wrapped in I love yous. He pressed the button. A match. Rachel had liked him back. A message appeared. Hey, your profile says you like morning coffee and sunset runs. We might be the same person. Want to grab coffee this weekend and figure out if we're living parallel lives? Marcus laughed, actually laughed, and typed back, sounds perfect. I know a great place. As the Portland sunset faded into night, Marcus realized something. Sarah had been right about one thing. She had needed to find herself. And in forcing him to do the same, she'd given him an unexpected gift. She'd set him free. His phone buzzed one last time. Sarah, I understand. I hope you find someone who chooses you first. You deserve that. You always did. I'm sorry I couldn't be her. Goodbye, Marcus. He didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Instead, he closed his laptop, took his cold coffee inside, and started planning what to wear for coffee with Rachel. He thought about what he might say, how he might explain his recent divorce without making himself sound broken or bitter. But he wasn't broken. He'd been dismantled, yes, but he'd rebuilt himself into something better, something whole on its own, not just part of someone else. The divorce papers had been finalized last month. Sarah Foster was legally gone from his life. And Marcus? Marcus was finally free to be himself. Not someone's husband, not someone's second choice, not someone waiting at home for a person who didn't want to be there. Just Marcus. And for the first time in years, that was enough. He looked at his reflection in the darkened window, a man he barely recognized but was learning to like. Someone who ran in the mornings and cooked real meals and laughed at bad puns. Someone who'd survived betrayal and come out stronger. Someone who knew how to choose himself first. As he got ready for bed that night in a house that felt like home, in a city he'd never planned to live in, Marcus realized something profound. Sarah had asked for a week away to find herself. And in that week, they'd both found exactly what they were looking for. She'd found out who she was without him, and he'd found out who he was without her. It turned out they were both better off that way. The freedom she'd asked for, the freedom he'd given her, had set them both free in ways neither had expected. He turned off the light and for the first time in years, fell asleep within minutes, dreaming not of what he'd lost, but of what he'd found himself.